I work as a journalist at SVT, the public broadcaster in Sweden. And for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been involved in several investigative projects involving tax havens. You mentioned the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, Pandora Papers. I've worked with all those investigations. Also lately, I've also worked a lot with money laundering issues connected to Swedish banks operating in the Baltics. You might have heard of money laundering issues connected to Swedbank and SEB, and they were fined for billions of kronor for problems with their anti-money laundering work in the Baltics. And the most recent project we have done was actually published Sunday, so just a few days ago. And it was the first project we had that was more focused into the extractive industries. It was a collaboration with an organization called Forbidden Stories. They get involved into projects where journalists have been threatened or killed or somehow stopped in their reporting. And to send a clear message to any enemy of the free press, they should know that when one journalist is stopped, there will be several others. And this investigation was into a nickel mine in Guatemala, where we, for the first time, actually could follow the raw material to the end producers in Europe and the sellers of these products. And I think that was a very important part of the investigation, that we could actually go to those companies and ask them, how can you say in your sustainability reports that you're doing everything fine and communicating this to the consumers when we find these kinds of problems, corruption, environmental issues, harmful substances to people and to animals, and so forth. So that's a little bit about my background and what I've been doing the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, that's fascinating work. I think to follow up also and link it to what Gay talked about, a lot of this is about transparency, right? And providing transparency. Based on your experience, looking into the Panama Papers and other papers, did it have an impact? Can you say that actually this type of investigative journalism and offering transparency is having an impact? You can see policy initiatives or something else. Can you elaborate that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely think that this work has an impact, and I feel very strongly that we journalists have an important role to play in this matter, because as Gay said, and as you all know, it's very difficult to access information. That's one of the main problems when you're investigating these kind of issues. Mm-hmm. And luckily, we have been provided with some enormous leaks that has given us a unique insight into these worlds. And for me, Panama Papers, and I think for many other journalists, was an eye-opener. For the first time, we could see actually what is going on behind these opaque structures. Beneficial ownership, transactions, all those kinds of financial data that can shed light on this industry. So, and the things that have happened is that I think that both the public, journalists, NGOs, lawmakers have understood that this is very important, and it's an issue that can affect us in so many ways, politically, security-wise, and also the environment. And I'm really happy that that issue has been brought up on the table now. So I think it's a very important development.
Yeah. So what would you say? And this is, I guess, where our interest as scientists and journalists connect, right? Is what would be the biggest challenges for you? I believe you're a data journalist, right? In investigating this, like where do you get stuck? What are the biggest obstacles in exploring this?
I think that initially it was the complexity of the material. just trying to sort out what is what. When you get so much data, you have to understand the data and make sense of it. So we have to keep on developing our methodology and our skills in a lot of different areas. It's also a very complex issue. You have to sort of learn a lot of things that I at least didn't know about. Legal issues and how the financial system works and things like that. So it's a very complex and difficult subject, but it's also interesting because it allows us to develop our skills. But there are also other issues that are problematic. Of course, the security issues. Maybe not for me as a journalist in Sweden, but for my colleagues in developing countries, it's super dangerous to report on these things. You can be killed, you can be threatened, and so on. So I think that as a journalist, collaboration is really the way to go, because a lot of Western journalists give protection to colleagues in countries like Guatemala, for instance.